Abraham. Should I give you a bit more about Yeah, basically what I do is I do an event every year that's called Breaking the Silence. And what I aim is to raise awareness to the issue of mental health, also to reduce that stigma.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
My name's Natalie. I'm an actress. I had my own experience with mental health when I was younger, and through that experience, due to something that happened during that experience, I'm now developing a film project with young men in a young offenders institution. We've just got to the post-production stage, so we've been working the last 18 months on it.
Good.
So yeah, an amazing experience. They're incredible guys.
Nice, lovely.
Thank you.
I'm Vanessa. I'm basically a personal trainer, but my experiences are working with people. I'm currently a full-time carer of my little brother who has mental health problems. I've also been through my own, and that's me.
Lovely. See, it's good to have you people. At least we've got a few people who's been through mental health, or at least working with people who are in mental health. So we're basically just want to be sharing each other's experiences and what people went through, what you all went through. I can talk about some things I've been through. So we're all going to have a quick dialogue, go through what everyone's been through. Hopefully we can come up with a few solutions to the problem. But this is in conjunction with Penificent.
Yeah.
Shout out to Penificent. If you don't know about Penificent, I will leave everything in the link after this podcast is done. Follow Penificent. And this is also in conjunction with Southwark Council. So this is basically being funded and supported by Southwark Council. So this is a really big thing. So guys, first of all, let me just start off by saying mental health. What is your perception of mental health? Because we all hear the word mental health, but people don't actually know what mental health is. People actually think that mental health is you're actually mental, you're walking on the road like you're a zombie or something like that. So what would you say your perception of mental health is? Start with you, Abraham.
Hey, can we start somewhere else now? Yeah. Now, for me, mental health is just about looking after your well-being, looking after your mind, innit?
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? And I think there's good mental health and then there's bad mental health, innit?
Okay.
So I think for me, my thing when it comes to mental health is, looking after your mind and your well-being.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think so my experience of mental health, I think a lot of it, it impacts your identity, impacts who you are. I think that it still, for some reason, has this huge stigma, even though I think physical well-being and emotional well-being are so interlinked. And I mean, particularly my own experience. So I was, at the age of 15, I was diagnosed with severe anorexia. And there was a real, I don't know that people really understood it at the time. I don't know if people fully understand it now, because it impacts both your physical and your emotional, your mental. And I wasn't expected to survive. So I think actually being able to understand the link between the two is paramount to being able to break down the stigma and actually create safe spaces for people to be vulnerable about how they're feeling. I think there's still, we always say, hey, how are you? Yeah, I'm good. We don't often really talk about, and particularly in the world we live in now, where we're always showing our show reel, right?
Yeah,
we were
exactly.
talking before we started on social media, and I've recently taken myself off all of that because I just think, I just need to be away for a bit, But,
That's true.
I just think mental health is something that we all have. Like Abraham said, like you have good mental health and you have bad mental health.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people suffer with mental health because they don't quite understand their emotions and the background that goes into, why your body reacts a certain way or acts a certain way is based on how you feel. And sometimes when you can put a label to that and you can put it into words so that you can talk to somebody, so that you can express that, that's when people have like a better chance at better mental health rather than worse mental health. So for me, especially as like a carer, as somebody who looks after my little brother, like I try to teach him to like express it, word it, like tell me you're frustrated. For like you see that feeling in your belly when you feel like that, that's nerves. Like understand that it's okay to be nervous and that these things are like part of life and whatever. And that's, I don't know, for me that's kind of like key, I think, to making people have a better perspective and understanding of mental health.
That's very true, because like now, growing up, I tend to think that, what I witnessed from growing up, a lot of things people suffer from a young age. It's usually an experience that they've gone through from a young age. And if you can't deal with that problem at that time, as they get older, it increases. But it increases into different things. So let's say, for example, when the child is born of innocence. So when the child is inside the mother's womb, the child feels the emotions of the parents. So if a child is constantly around noises like arguing, the child will be picking up that vibration. So as the child gets older, it starts off, it will kind of start off on like, not say in a back burner, but it'll start off with some negative vibes going around the child. So what tends to happen is, when the child is getting older, if you bring a positive environment for that child to grow up in, it kind of gives the child a better upbringing. But then again, we're in a day and age where parents, there's a lot of dysfunction in families nowadays. I feel that sometimes it's systematically put for there to be a breakdown in families. Because as what happens when the child is growing up, if a child is with sometimes a single parent home, or both parents are there, as long as it's a mum or the father and they're working in unison with a child, trying to teach the child different things, they have a better chance of growing up. Because, let me give an example. Like, my son, I was with his mum at the time, but we kind of split up. We're not together anymore. But I felt like when I was in a relationship with his mother, it was a bit toxic to the level where it was best for us to be separate in order to raise my son up in a way where he can go up and be a positive member to society. Why I say this is because when we was together, we used to have a lot of arguments, a lot of back and forth, and I used to observe and see what my son used to pick up the anger that I used to show towards his mother, because we struggled to have a good dialogue. Because it's like we're living in the same household, we're from two different worlds. So I was starting to see certain patterns within my child that he's picking up all the negative energy that I was portraying to his mom at the time. So it made me think, you know what, certain things he was doing, certain things he was saying, I thought, no, if I don't sort this out now, then he can probably lead and get older and go into a destructive path where I don't want him to go down. So sometimes it depends on the upbringing as well from the child from when they're young. Because a lot of these kids now, as they're going into the real world, as they're growing up, there's always something that they've either been through or they've witnessed from the household. Whether it is they witnessed abuse from parents, whether it's in worst case scenarios, some of these kids have been molested by close family members and things like that. So it's difficult for people to express what they've been through, especially at a young age. So I'm saying this, I want to ask you a question. So do you think at a young age, how do we teach children or kids growing up about dangers of mental health? Because I believe that if you teach people these things from young, they have more of a chance of understanding from young. As they grow up, then you can try to sway them away from show them how they can express their emotions as they get older. So I just want to ask you that.
That's a good point you made, because there's so many layers to it. So even what you said about children going through things when they're in the womb, do you get what I'm saying? And sometimes it can even be one traumatic event that sets people off in it. But someone gave this analogy to me, and they said, you know what? In life, you're given a toolbox, and your toolbox has all the tools you need to deal with situations that come your way. Yeah. And sometimes we grow up and we haven't got many tools in our toolbox. We got that one tool, we're trying to use it for multiple things. Do you get what I'm saying? And I think in terms of raising children, it's giving them all the tools they need so that if they do run into any of these situations, they know how to express themselves, how to kind of deal with it. And having these conversations are important because they remove that stigma. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, that's true.
I can't remember what the actual question was there.
So basically what I was saying is, I tend to think that from a young age, kids, that's how they learn, that's when their mind is like a sponge, they absorb a lot of things, so they absorb a lot of the energy that is put around them at such a young age. So I'm saying, how can we nurture these kids through these phases? And it's not always, it doesn't have to be because of the upbringing from even if there was growing up in a single parent household, how could we, because like I said, as a community, we're responsible for all these kids. So we have to, how can we be able to nurture them from a young age?
I I think it's also, I think we're of a generation where there's much more acceptance. It's all about mental health now.
Yeah.
My dad, he has had depression all my life. I didn't know that as a child. He just wasn't very present. But in recent years, it's been really bad for him, and that comes from trauma that he experienced when he was a child. That he was never given the tools to process, and I think that it's about teaching people, teaching parents as well, to be able to talk about their emotions. I'm someone who's like, what's under the rug? Let's get it out from under the rug. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. And I was somebody growing up who was quite sensitive but in tune with my emotions, but that wasn't always understood. It was often, oh, she's just a sensitive one. Oh, no, she's the one who's going to cry. I'm like, no, I'm crying because there's a reason to be crying. Something's hurting. And not having that platform to be able to say, or that space to be able to say, I'm hurting because. And I think when you're young, oftentimes things will happen when you're very, very young and you don't have the vocabulary yet. And if you're talking about things that may have happened to us that no child ought to experience, that often comes from somebody quite close within the family or a friend. So then there's that confusion, but that's somebody who was meant to take care of me, and so there's a confusion between what's happened to them and who did that to them. And so then that child from a very early age carries shame, and they're often told, don't tell anybody. And I think it really is educating parents, educating schools, educating community groups, so that there are those safe spaces where a child can and actually to express themselves, but also know that just as much as saying I'm happy is a relevant feeling, to be able to say I'm sad, I'm hurting, I'm scared, I'm frightened, those feelings are just as relevant. You can't have happy if you don't know what sad is. It's always like, oh, let's shun away from the things that are uncomfortable, and actually we have to go into that place of discomfort in order to come out the other side, and then to be able to help somebody else.
Very true.
I don't know if that answered the question.
No,
But
yeah.
it makes me went on one.
I basically have always worked with children, so I've got like 7 years experience working with like between 1 and 12-year-old children, and most of it I spent working in a private setting with 1 to 5-year-olds. And I remember once, well, not once, like our behaviour policy used to be like the happy and sad face, and I don't know, as I got into it and I started to understand better about children's development and stuff like that, I once raised it in the meeting, like in our meeting, the next meeting that arose, I was like, why do we only teach them happy and sad when there's frustrated, there's the whole spectrum in between, there's anxious, there's this, there's that. And after that meeting, we basically implemented the fact that now we can use, but it was like literally you couldn't say it, I'd be in trouble. Like if I had said any other word other than sad when telling a child off, I would be in trouble as a practitioner. So it was literally like a complete change in our approach. And I had left and come back, and they had emotion cards. And on the emotion cards, it's like a face plus all the different types of emotions. I mean, emotions I can't even really label, to be fair, but they're very visual, obviously because of the age group. And I think, like I said to you before, that teaching children what an emotion is, what that looks like to their body, how the body reacts to that. My body used to tremble at things, and I didn't really understand why. And only now, in the last couple of years, I'm understanding that's anxiety. That's you're literally, whatever you're thinking about right now, it's your body is not shaking for no reason. And as a kid, like you say, you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't what does that look like? So I think it's all important to label, not only label, also display, so i.e. giving them that physical, showing them what that looks like so they can understand if I get like this is why. And then obviously through that they're able to express themselves better. Whether they choose to or not is a different story, but being able to and saying okay, well, this is what's been happening with me and I don't know why, or I don't know what's bringing this to me, but you can say it. Do you understand? I think a lot of us lack the emotional intelligence to discuss and communicate how it is that we actually feel, and that's what leads to a lot of different mental health problems, just as much as you know, I guess if a child's seen things like you had said, a lot of children witness different things, and due to what they witness, it can have like a detrimental effect on their development. With me, I took my brother when he was 12 years old, and his mental health problems did derive from seeing abuse within the home. So, and a lot of what he was doing and displaying was the exact same thing he witnessed. So when I took him, it wasn't, as much as it was like hard and stuff, it wasn't so much a surprise that everyone kind of knew what we saw. So, and with him, he has a hard time processing his emotions. So that's like, when I first took him, that was like the hardest thing, because he'd flip. So there was no understanding. It was just, I'm either okay or I'm mad. There was nothing else. So, like I say to you, I try to, like, as much as I can, explain to him, like, when I'm mad and stuff, like, when I get it wrong, like, I admit, like I say, like, I was wrong. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I was frustrated. I've had a hard day. I'd been traveling. Like, I'm tired. Like, it was just, I shouldn't have acted like that. But I tried to explain to him, like, this is why and this is how I felt before I got to you. So I tried to give him, like, the breakdown of how I feel. And that's not always easy for me, but it's easy for me to do to him, because I know that the outcome it will have for him is a lot more than saying it to, I guess, a friend and being like, oh, that's my breakdown of how I feel. But yeah, I think when you give kids that kind of tools to communicate verbally, they will do less things that are actionable. So a lot of children act out because they don't have words. A lot of children, you know, either, you know, they go in themselves or stop eating, etc., because they also cannot communicate themselves. If you can say, like, this is what's happening, this is even having that safe person to know that too. So it should be your parents, ideally. Not everyone has that situation, but ideally you would hope it would be your parents. And if a lot of our parents weren't taught that kind of emotional intelligence, and I think in this generation, the one thing that we're kind of blessed with is that where we're so, you know, trying and everyone's willing to do new things, I think we've come away from, you know, like you say, like shying from mental health. Everyone's kind of like open that they've been through it. They might not talk all about it, but they can express, like, I've been through some kind of experience. And I feel like as many of us start to do that, that's when people feel more included. And feeling included is like something that a lot of people with depression, anxiety, all of them type of mental health issues feel. They feel alone. They feel like nobody else is going to understand. When they're having a panic attack and they can't breathe, that no one else gets it. No one. But it's not the case, because there's plenty of us. And if we talk out, like I say, we start to feel a lot less alone.
Yeah, it's very true, because for me, growing up in an African household, it was very difficult to express your emotions to your parents.
You just don't talk about it.
You just keep it in, because to express your emotion, what you're going through with an African parent, the first thing they're going to relate it to is religion, or you need to praise God. And I'm not saying it like I was brought up in a Christian household, so I do believe in God. But to somebody who is not spiritual, that's just going to go over their head. Because that's like parents, especially African parents, the main thing is religion. They don't understand depression, PTSD.
I think also as well is sometimes they compare it to what they've gone through.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
for them, they think, you're stressed about an exam, or you're anxious about this. I've had to go through this when I was your age.
Yeah.
And, you know, so they find
But
it hard to
it's
relate.
true, exactly. So there's a big gap between like our generation and like parents' generation, because the suffering, the struggles they went through compared to what we go through is completely different. So, like, for my parents, they went through a lot of struggle, at least to even come to this country. Imagine coming here from abroad, job-wise. My dad, he worked in like a meat market. He was paying him like £10 a day for 8 hours work. So how he looks at it, he looks at how you can't be down, you can't be depressed. You're born here, you've got more opportunities than we had. So he looks at me like, you need to just man up and get on with it. But sometimes it is very difficult, because growing up in this environment doesn't necessarily mean that you got a head start. There's still obstacles that we got to face as well. We bear from where you come from, how you speak, how you look, how you socialize with people from different ethnicities is very difficult. So I believe that most of these things that's happening to people, it's all systematic. It's all a system. The system is out here to keep you down in this state, to keep you down, depressed. Just take for instance, there's a lot of people who are working, but they're working jobs that they don't enjoy doing. So you've got to wake up every morning, go to a job you don't enjoy doing. You're told when to have your breaks. You're told when you can like go on your phone or things like that. On top of that, you might have colleagues at work that you don't like. You might not like your boss. And you've got to go through all these emotions just because you're there trying to get money because you have bills to pay. You've got kids to take care of. So I feel like a lot of people, they are so stressed. If you just observe people's faces when they're out on the street, you can see people, we are all like zombies. Everybody's like zombies. When they're walking, you can see everybody's got problems in their mind, but nobody can express their problems. Because nowadays, people are not ready to sit down to talk to people. Communication now is not verbal, it's not face-to-face anymore. It's social media. I see people, they will have a full conversation with you on social media, see you face-to-face and high-five. Because nobody can, we're losing that social skill where we can sit down and have a conversation with people, because I believe when you have a heart-to-heart with someone, you can genuinely see the problems that they're going through, whereas if it's on the phone and I'm talking to you, I can't see your emotion. And I feel like a lot of people are suffering in many different ways. Like you said, you suffer from being anorexia. So even when you had anorexia, like, what kind of led you to that stage? Did you have like something that happened in your life that?
Yeah. I think anorexia is it's really complex, and I think there were a variety of triggers. There were lots of little triggers that led to it, and it would take an individual podcast to talk about them, and they're really personal. So probably
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, something happened when I was very young that I didn't really understand at the time. I think, and I don't wish to speak badly of my brother and my dad. They're great people, but I didn't have a relationship with them. That they were in the house, so I felt misunderstood. I didn't feel like I belonged. I think I really struggled with I'm trying to say it without giving too much away. There was just a lot of I was very popular, but I really struggled with shyness. But I can mimic people off the TV, so my mum sent me off to drama school, and I found this outlet. But then I think when puberty was probably just about to hit, that's when triggers and traumas and things came up for me, and I think I just ran. I ran from that feeling. I ran from the things that were coming up for me that I had no one and nowhere to go to talk. And it started, I was always underweight as a kid. I was very small and underweight, and so I was also constantly from primary school weighed and measured and monitored and weighed and measured and monitored, and people were brought in to speak to my parents about me. I didn't know at the time if they were social service or who they were. But I remember them being brought into the primary school to talk to my parents about me, and they saw that both my mum and my dad are tiny, so like, okay. Various triggers of just not really knowing my place in the world, and the pain of some things that I'd experienced growing up that, as I said before, I didn't have a language for. A combination of things triggered it. And I think a massive, just kind of piggybacking off there were a couple of things you said about manning up. I think that's a really interesting thing that men are told, man up, men don't cry, and girls are told, oh, you're just weak, you're pathetic, you cry. And actually I think it's about bringing us all together, not as male and female, but actually we're all human, and we all have this emotional well of emotions, right? And they're no less relevant to a man than they are to a woman. I say to the guys that I work with in the prison, and obviously prison's a hostile environment. I'm kind of going for a tangent, but it can be a hostile environment, and these guys have experienced deep trauma, a lot of them, and there's pain there. And I sometimes say, when did you last cry? And sometimes I've not cried in ages. I say, or sometimes I need to cry, but I don't know how. And I say to them, look, if men weren't meant to cry, you wouldn't have tear ducts. But it's about, again, finding that safe space where you can cry and you will be received for that. I think vulnerability is one of the biggest strengths in a man and a female. But vulnerability is often seen as a huge weakness. Saying you're scared is seen as a weakness. Whereas I think to have the bravery to say, you know what? I don't feel like I've got it all together right now, and I'm scared because I've got an exam, or I'm scared because actually I'm scared to step out the house today because of whatever it might be. And I think we need to champion and encourage people's bravery when they say, you know what, I'm not doing okay. Because I think that would also break down the stigma of you're weak if you show people that you haven't got it all together today or you're struggling today.
Just to add like to what you said, I actually had anorexia as a kid
Did
as
you?
well myself. Yeah, and I had it from like as long as I can kind of remember. I had it from like nursery, so it wasn't like something to me I had. It was just something I like. That's how I was, rather than something I had. And I was always kind of like you said, going to the hospital. Everyone's always checking on you. Everyone's doing this, doing that. And obviously, I got to an age where I started to explore food, and like when I was about 13, I started to gain a bit of weight, and I was staying around friends' houses, and I was like eating things because I was out of respect. Like, you know, your mum tells you it's food, and I'm there like, but it's terrifying me, but I'm eating it. And that's kind of how I started to explore food. But I found that, like, as I grew, I kind of use not eating as a tool for when I can't express myself. So when I had depression, I dropped like 10 kg in about 4 months, and within like 6, I dropped like 15. So I was like, I weighed like 67, and by the end I weighed like 50. So I literally like lost everything, and everyone around me was concerned. Like I was working at the time, all of my colleagues would be like, "What's wrong? What's going on?" And because I had no words to express how I felt, I was saying to them, "I'm fine." Like, and I actually believed, of course, that I was also fine. Like I didn't know it was depression, but it's like you tend to use something as a tool to make up for the lack of expression. So that's how as I've been able to reflect and look back at myself, I can see that in times when I've felt a certain way or been at a certain point, that's what I will do. I won't eat, and it's easy for me to be stressed today and be like, no food. That's an easy option for me. It's a harder option for me to be like, I'm gonna eat regardless of the stress. Like that's hard. And that's not just like people with anorexia or people that overeat. Also the same, overindulge is because they're trying to compensate a lot. Usually a lot of the time for something else. Same with many other things, smoking, drinking. It's all things you can't express it, so I'm gonna do something that suppresses it.
It's very true. Because the one thing I noticed as well is true, because, you know, I tend to help a lot of homeless people when I do see them. I help as much people as I can. And I always used to think, why do homeless people always ask me for money, but mainly when I give them money, they're buying alcohol. And when I actually thought, I thought, you know what? That drink that they're drinking, they're drinking to suppress the emotion that they're going through. Because that's how people do things differently. Like some people either take drugs when they're feeling down or depressed. Some people drink alcohol. Some people, there's many things people do. And one thing I realized as well, with alcohol, even if someone is depressed, alcohol gives people a lot of confidence. So that's why people always go out to drink for social gatherings when people are drinking. And when I was sat there to think, I thought, oh, no wonder why they call it spirits as well. Because it's when you drink alcohol, spirit of confidence, spirit of like, at least that's what I was thinking. I was thinking because a lot of people, when you have a drink, they don't have no confidence to talk to people on a normal day. You have a drink, you're sociable. Or some people have a drink and they can go opposite, they really want to fight everyone. And they're not really like aggressive person. So one thing I do understand about like when people are depressed and things like that, the best thing you can do is to share your emotion with somebody. But nowadays, there's not a lot of people who are willing to sit down to listen to you. Everybody's going through their own stresses, but how would you know what people are going through if you can't communicate? And I tend to think when I was going through my little issues, mainly things like lack of money, things like that, because money was a big thing. And when I had a lack of money, it's very frustrating, it's very difficult, because there was times where I was unemployed for a long period of time. I had no income. But one thing that didn't stop was the bills. The bills was coming thick and fast. And I was there thinking, what am I going to do to exactly? And this is not those days, I can't ask my parents for money. Especially being a man. See, when you get to a certain age, you're not supposed to be asking your parents. Or as a man, how many people put it, you're a man, you got a man up. I find it even difficult to even ask my friends. Because the shame. It's like, it's very painful. You can't, people who you're close to, when you're struggling, you can't really reach out to them like, bro, I'm struggling at this time. You always put on a brave face, like you're coping. They ask you, how you doing, bro? You're right. Yeah, I'm good. But deep down, I'm feeling it. You're right, yeah?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so deep down, I'm just holding everything in. And I remember how I used to express myself, because I always believed in my heart that there's something in me. You know, you have to know yourself, innit? You have to know yourself. I always believed there's something in me that was different. I had a strong heart. I faced so many adversities in my life, but I always came out on top. So I always managed to speak to myself. I used to look at myself in the mirror and talk to myself.
Yeah.
And I used to think, are you mental? Why are you talking to yourself in the mirror? But no, that's how it helped me. I used to look at myself and say, come on, Les, man, you know who you are. You know what you're about. Yeah, I used to speak to myself. And
words of affirmation.
Yeah, I'll say, you can do it. And I used to boost myself. And some people don't have that support. Some people they need that support from someone else. They need that guidance. They need that word of advice from someone else. You need to put your arm around someone like, bro, I believe in you. You can do it. Because right now, everybody's going through their own problem. But like I said, we don't know what people are going through because nobody's talking. So is that whether you're depressed, you have suicidal thoughts. Like, I'm going to share a story. This story is painful to me. One of my closest friends, he committed suicide. And when it happened, it was so painful because, you know what happens? We both grew up in the same area. But he went to university in one area, I went to university in another area. So we lost contact with each other. So as we lost contact with each other, I always used to think about him. I wonder where he is. Because when we was growing up together, I always wanted him to like come over to my house and chill and what? He used to come over and chill for like 5-10 minutes and go home. And he said, why are you always coming 5-10 minutes and then going home? I never knew what he was going through in his house because his father was sick. I think his dad had cancer. His dad was dying, but I never knew this. I used to say to him, what's wrong with you? You never want to chill where we want to go out. You don't want to come out with us. What's wrong with you? Then one day he said to me, I should follow him to the hospital. And I was like, what am I going to the hospital for? So he needs to go and see his dad. I thought, okay, let's go. When I went there, I'll never forget seeing his dad on the bed, frail. He was so frail, and I looked and I thought, wow. And I know his dad for being strong. I didn't know his dad had cancer. He didn't tell me, because he kept that inside. And I said, oh, so this is the reason why you didn't want to like hang around for too long, because you're always looking after your dad. So I kind of felt bad, because all the things I used to say, like, oh, you don't want to chill, you don't want to like hang out with us, you just always want to go back to your house. But that's what he was dealing with. So at that time, he had a younger brother. He became the man of the house. Because his dad was basically, he was dying. He became the man of the house. He was cooking for his younger brother. Similar things what you're doing, taking care of your sibling. He was looking after his younger brother, feeding him, taking him to school, picking him up, and contributing to the bills because the mum was struggling. The dad couldn't really do nothing. He was basically on his way out. Eventually, his dad sadly passed. So now his dad's passed. The mum's putting a lot of pressure on him. I remember he was telling me, we used to talk a lot, he's telling me, but my mum's putting pressure on me. That he's got to pay all the bills now. She had her own issues, but he's the man of the house now. He's got to take care of the household and things like that. So he said to me, the only way he can do it is going through university. I said, no problem. If you believe that you're going to go through university and get like a better job, more career prospects, go do what you need to do. He went there. He got his degree. Fair enough. He thought he was going to get a job. Came out there to find out when you got a degree, everybody's fighting for the same thing. Everybody's got a degree now. What they actually want is experience. Then he realized, okay, so I've got my degree. I can't get into what I want to get into. Let me at least try and go for the masters. So he got his masters as well. So he had his masters now. He thought, okay, now I'm definitely going to get what I want. He went out there. He was still struggling. Couldn't get what he wanted to get into. And I remember we spoke on the phone, and I hadn't seen him for like, I would say, 5-6 years. I didn't see him at that time. So we was talking. I remember he told me that he was living in Coventry, and I was living in Leicester. So I couldn't believe you're that close to me. I said, yeah, we're going to meet up. So we arranged it. And then what happened, the day we were supposed to meet up, I lost my phone. And I remember I lost my phone. I was like, damn, I lost his number again. Like, is he going to come to Leicester? Because we were supposed to come to Leicester to the coach station to meet him. So he's going to come and meet me at the coach station. So I went there, I didn't see him, so I thought he probably tried to ring me, couldn't get through. So I thought, I need to try and find a way to get back in contact with him. Luckily, one of my other friends still had his number, so he sent it to me. So I rang my friend again, like, sorry about that day, I lost my phone. Yeah, but now let's arrange it again to meet up. He said, yeah, no problem, we're going to meet up. So we planned a day when we're going to meet up. So imagine, I think it was on a Tuesday, I spoke to him. I said, we're going to meet up on a Friday. I'm getting a call on Thursday from my other friend. He rang me once. I didn't answer because I was busy. He rang me twice. I was driving at the time. He rang me twice. I thought, what's going on? He rang me 3 times in a row. I thought something happened. Answered the phone. He said, my friend committed suicide. And I thought, what? I just talked to him like a few days ago. What are you talking about? He said he took an overdose and he killed his. And I feel, I wouldn't say that it's my fault, but it weighs on my heart because I said if I met him that day, I was supposed to meet him. I know having a one-on-one view, he could have opened up to me. I know because me and him had that relationship. I was like a brother to him because he obviously had his younger brother, but they had such a big age gap. Whereas me, I've got my brother's only 2 years older than me. You know when you got the gap, you can kind of bond together. So I take that upon my heart. Like I feel like I could have potentially had that conversation with him where I could have swayed him away from doing what he done, but it's difficult because you never know what people are going through. You never know. And when we was talking on the phone, he never explained to me that he's stressed out or anything. We were just talking like normal. So I thought, hey, everything's fine. To hear he committed suicide, so it's very painful. Like suicide and things like that. I always say to myself, I wonder what goes through your mind. That's the last step in your mind. You've been through depression, you've been through everything. To think, this is it, I just want to end my life. That shows that there was no support from no one there to help you, no one to talk to. You felt lonely. You couldn't express your feelings to nobody. Or probably you did want to express your feelings, but people didn't want to hear it. But then, also you have to look at it this way. We're not kids no more. Everybody's older now. People have responsibilities and things like that. We understand. But nowadays, just a quick text to each other. How you doing, bro? You okay? It helps a lot. It shows that for someone to send you a text, that person thought about you. Just a text. Now, it's not those days when people are buying credit. £5, what's it called? 5-day pass.
Pre-mobile.
Nowadays, what unlimited calls and texts is what you can get for £10. But we don't talk. We don't talk to each other.
Also, I don't even think we know how to as men. The reason why is we talk about everything else but the real issues that we deal with. We can talk about football.
It's true.
Like anything. But when it comes to the real issues, we don't do that. Do you get what I'm saying? And that's something I've realised we need to change. Like even now I have conversations with my nephews and just, like say for example one of my nephews, he might get angry. And I explain to him like there's nothing wrong with getting angry, it's how you deal with it.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? A lot of people come up with some great initiatives out of being angry at seeing certain injustice, or do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And just letting them know that, all right, cool, you can be upset about something, but how do you deal with it? Same thing, you mentioned the phrase "man up." And I realised sometimes we can end up saying that to the next generation coming up.
Yeah,
man
exactly.
up. Do you get what I'm saying? And I had to remind myself not to do that with my nephews. And when they're vexed about something, or they're crying about something, you know what's happening? What's going on? Rather than that, stop crying, man up. Do you get what I'm saying? Because then that's kind of continuing that cycle, but getting them to actually express what's going on, getting them to talk about things. All right, this happened. All right, how did that make you feel? All right, why do you feel that way? And I think a lot of times that's what we don't do is men is like have them conversations where we can unpack those emotions. Do you get what I'm saying? And I think you said it really well in terms of being able to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, a lot of the banter we have has been. There's certain things you feel like, I can't say this to the man then. Do you get what I'm saying? It's real. And that man might not even know that the way he's bantering you is going to mess you up. He might just think it's a joke thing. Like, you might say, rah, man's having issues with my missus. And he might just say something that's throwing you off. But that's just man then banter. So then all of a sudden, you're not even going to want to say that now. Because you're going to think, that man ain't going to get it. Or also, how we think we're meant to behave as men. So you're thinking, I shouldn't be vexed about this. I should feel this way about it.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So there's all these things that I always say we have to unlearn and we have to relearn certain things. Do you get what I'm saying? So there's a lot of stuff that we've been taught growing up that we have to unlearn, and then there's a lot of new things that we have to start to learn, that there is strength in, in vulnerability. But it's also finding people we can have those conversations with. Because what I've realised is a lot of people are like, okay, I'm available to have a discussion, but they can't get where you're coming from. And when you're going through depression and anxiety, it's so hard to explain it. It's like the hardest thing to explain.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like I was going through anxiety and I was going through panic attacks. I didn't even know what it was. I remember it happening and I was going to the hospital because I thought there was something wrong with my chest. Like, why am I breathing like this? So workplace will rush me to the hospital, said I'm fine. And this has happened like 2 or 3 times. And it took a long time for me to actually realise I was having a panic attack those times. Do you get what I'm saying? And even when I was dealing with bad anxiety, what I'm saying, like, I couldn't even get out of bed to go work. But I couldn't explain that to people because it just looked like I was being lazy.
Yeah.
Everyone's thinking, why do you want to go work? But it wasn't, I don't want to go. It was just I was dealing with bad anxiety. And I realised that, okay, these are reasons why people don't talk about those things, because it's the response you're going to get, because it's so hard. Unless someone's gone through it, for them to understand it, it's difficult. Because I had a friend and he went through anxiety and he said to me, it's funny, he said to me, he goes, I thought you were being lazy when you were going through things. I thought, right, why don't you just get up and get out of your house? But he never said it to me. But he said, you know what, now I'm going through what I'm going through. I understand what you were going through. So it's so hard to explain it to people and for them to fully get you. And sometimes people think it's as easy as think positive. Think just be positive, but it's not that simple. You're talking about so much trauma that in some people's cases that's happened.
It's happened.
And you need to go through therapy and unpack and deal with those issues and really dig deep on why those things are affecting you. So sometimes, like I said, there's no conversation. You might talk to someone and they mean well. Do you get what I'm saying? Because they're trying to do their best to encourage you. But what they say leaves you in a worse place now. Do you get what I'm saying? So sometimes I think that's a factor that amongst men we think, let's just hold it in. Do you get what I'm saying? Let's not say it.
Yeah, it's very true. Well, would you say that as men, it's like we said before, it's from when you're young and you've been taught you're a man.
Definitely.
You're the man of the house. You got a lot of pressure on your shoulders. Yeah, and also from parents.
Yeah.
They teach you a certain level of upbringing, and the society's changed now because like our parents' generation. I feel like we're the last of the dying breed. How we're raising our children, the things that they taught us, we're teaching our children like these things, but we're kind of watering it down. Because we can't be as extreme as our parents were now. Because now there's a lot of legislations about. You see, like our parents used to beat me, like serious. But it was never one thing I know, even from being young. It was never out of anger. That's what I know. It was never out of anger. I know certain things I done was bad and they done it, but it was never like malicious. Where some people some kids have been damaged from their parents.
Even like verbal abuse,
verbal
things that have been said. Do you know what I mean? I think from young, like you said, growing up in an African household, like you're taught that as a boy, like, hey, burn up, don't cry. Do you get what I'm saying? So like I'd say, and my dad will even say, why are you crying? I'll give you a reason to cry. Then straight away when you hear that, you firm it up in it, and then before you know it, you carry those things in, thinking, right, I can't show emotion. Like that's weakness. Like, do you get what I mean? And it's like I said, it's those things you have to now unlearn in it. But growing up, that was kind of the thing in it. Like, and what I've seen in some African homes is you're just there, like, but you shouldn't speak your mind. It's like, that's it. Children are there to be seen, not heard. That's the saying. Do you get what I'm saying? So you really feel like I don't have a voice. It's weird because I was talking to my nephews the other day and I said, you guys are lucky. Like, my nephews can come in and they'll be like, no, I'm quiet. I don't agree with that. I think you're wrong on this. And it's fine. I couldn't have them conversations with my dad and my mum. But they're like, it's encouraged with us. Like, all right, express how you feel about this. Do you get what I'm saying? That it's cool. And it shows how far we've come. In that we're creating those environments where kids can just express themselves. So I think definitely it is a cultural thing in how we've grown up as well and how we're raised.
I think, when you was talking about, responsibilities and stuff, I think, like you said, the world around children has become very soft and cuddly. It's well looked after, well protected by laws. Not to say bad things do not happen, but it's much more protected in that nature. And in that, children also lose out on a lot of insight into how things actually work, how consequences actually happen for actions. And I think we're getting to a stage probably where people are starting to see that there has to be more of a balance.
Yeah, it's
And-
got to be balanced.
But there was definitely a stage where it's probably in my generation particularly, like where it was your parents became soft, your siblings were let to do what they want. They can express themselves, but express themselves how is, they're going to always choose to do the wrong way, and rather than like tell the exact words or emotions, it will be like shown, it will be displayed, like you say, like confidently. Like you wouldn't do that when I was a kid, but my siblings, 10 years later, yes, they would. Like they will express that with all kinds of bangs and shouting, like, whatever. But through that, you lose, like I say, that responsibleness, like for your actions. Like if something happens, there's a consequence. If you do something, then there's a consequence. If somebody else does something, there's a consequence. And teaching children a lot about karma, like for me, that's why I'll be honest, I'll be teaching my brother like an hour conversation with him the other day just about karma, like. And I was saying, because he obviously understands bad karma. Everybody understands bad karma. But when I'm showing him, like, do you understand that when you go into the world and you do something, you help someone smiles at you and you smile back, and you see someone struggling and you just pick it up. And I was like, do you understand that when you do those things, the rewards that it reaps? Like a lot of us are so clueless to the fact that if we walk around and just do anything won't come back. Of course it will. And it's not just the bad, it's the bad and the good. And a lot of people who sit there and, I don't know, they'll find themselves in a bad place, will also have to admit they wasn't really doing anything good. Like when I was depressed, I didn't have conversations. I wasn't communicating with people. So how can I do anything good? I wasn't doing anything that karmically could make my situation anything better. It was literally, I'm in that zone, I'm in that frame, and nothing more will come. Like I would walk down the street and my face would be so angry and so cross, and I was always like that. Like I just found myself like that most of the time. Like, but now as obviously I'm a person who's not depressed, it's like I feel like I'm in a very, very good place. So I walk around and I smile, and you see the reactions and the amount of people I interact with a day that are strangers and that mean nothing to me, like the discount I'll get in the shop because I said something nice to somebody. It's a different place that you come to once you find yourself away from that, and that's when you learn, like, obviously the bigger rewards and things. But I think children definitely have to understand the consequences, both good and bad, of whatever it is that we're putting out into the world in terms of energy, in terms of karma, in terms of everything.
That's very true. Who do you think that who's responsible for teaching these kids these things? Because how I see it now, there's a lot of parents who rely on the teachers.
I think it's everybody.
At the home,
I think it's a community. Like, I think what I've learned, especially having my brother, like what I want for my kids, that's what I've learned. I definitely have not been perfect on this journey of being like a carer and stuff. I've had to learn, like, I was like 20 when I took him, so I was a little kid myself. But it's like, I've learned community is the most important thing. Growing up in a house that like had domestic abuse, you didn't have a community. Like that what was happening in your home, that was what's happening. Like your mum might have one friend that she talks to, maybe you might go there once in a while, but you wasn't like out just, your mum's socialising and she's showing you how to talk to people and she's showing you how to order food at a restaurant. It wasn't like that. So I missed out on a lot of experiences through like that experience at home. And I think a lot of kids, like, if they are not shown, I don't know what the words were, what I was going to say. But yeah, I think a lot of what kids see and do will obviously result in what they also see and do. But if you have a community around you, let's say the child acts out badly, and you've got, I don't know, cousins, uncles, your dad's friends, X, Y, Z, doesn't just have to be men, but for the nature of it, I'm mentioning men, and they can come to you and say, what's up? Like, what's on a man-to-man level? Like, just as much as we say be a man, you can also have a man-to-man level where it's like a certain level of responsibility and accountability comes into play. Because when I hear the word man, that's what I think of. I don't associate it with manning up. Like you say, I associate it with much to do with vulnerability, 100%. Like, if a man can tell me, like, you know what? I felt so upset by boom, boom, boom. It's an attractive thing. It's even attractive as a woman because I can understand you better and now we can communicate better. Now I can do the same, etc. But it's like, I think the community around them has to teach them that it's okay and that it's all right. And I've learned through, like, because I've worked with I work with kids that are very privileged and well off. And I've seen that is what they have set up. Like, there's people all around them in different parts. You're not supposed to have, like, you know how different people have different skills? That's why you need a community. Because one person might be a listener. One person might be able to advise you. One person might be practical. One person, X, Y, Z. But all of these things, like you saying about a toolbox, that's a toolbox of people. And if you've got a toolbox of people around you, you're going to go to the right place just when you need to. And I think that's one of the most important things, is having different people with different skills, so that when those times come up, you can be like, boom. At certain times, I wouldn't go to my mum because my mum's very reactive. So like talking to my auntie was much more rational. That made sense for me. Likewise, with my little brothers, they also know she can be quite dramatic. So like it would be things like parents' evening. They'd ask me to come, and it sounds bad, because obviously that's my mum's place. But they'd literally be like, "Can you come and talk to my?" Because the approach I had was just different, and it's not. And when she used to be upset with me about things like that, like, "Oh, he invited you," I didn't even know she didn't know, for example, but she'd get mad at me like that I had attended and she hadn't. I'd explain to her, like, literally, you're reactive. This is how you are. And if your child feels more comfortable because you're doing certain things that are boom, 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 then that's, like, I'm happy that he can come to me, innit? Like, you might not be happy, but I'm happy that he's able to find a place where it's like, he didn't just not go to parents' evening and no one knows what's happening in his life. He just picked the right person that he felt like at the time should be there. And that's kind of how I found the balance with my brother that I look after. We have a balance. Like, now it's much better. Like, my mum's a mum. She has that nurturing, that loving, that compassion. Like, I'm quite straight up. I'm quite real about life. So I'll be teaching him a lot about these consequences. But what we found is that when, he's upset and sad, he only goes to her. He doesn't come to me, because he knows that that's not where his emotional support is best kept. Like, it's not. I'm not the best person for the job. I can do it. I can be there for you, but it's going to be in a different nature. But when something serious happens in his life, if he gets arrested, if this happens, if something bad, like, I'm the first person he runs to. He would never tell my mum that information. Do you get what I mean? So through that, he's found a balance, and he's emotionally, he's much more better off, like, completely. But yeah, I think that's what it is, like, giving people that community of people around them with a range of, we're all unique. So it's not even about acquiring a range of skills. It's just being as unique as you are, and people finding what is unique to you. And I think that's what it is, really.
I was going to add to that. I think that's really important, because it's like Leo's mum, that's like my auntie. Patrick behind the camera. His mum's my auntie, but we're growing up like that, innit?
Yeah, exactly.
Any of their mums could see me, and if I was acting up, listen, they'll put me in my place. Let me know, listen, you shouldn't be doing that. And then, do you get what I'm saying? You listen to that, and you think, you know what, it's true. Aunties told me that, let me listen. And I think that's what helped me growing up, having different people that could kind of just speak to me and advise me at different points of my life. Do you get what I'm saying? So I agree with that. I think that's
true. But it's true. But do you feel that now our generation, we've kind of caused that division now between us and the youth? Because back in the day, it's like you said, if my mum saw you doing something, she can address you. But now I feel like our generation, we can't even address these people anymore, because their mentality now is that they got so much anger inside of them. Because I just feel that how it is for them growing up now, with the system now, there's so much things against them. So their anger is so built up that even for me to try to speak to someone who's like a youth younger than me, I have to first of all gain that trust. I have to gain that trust before then I can see what is affecting him. Because a lot of these kids now, when I try to talk to them, and the other day I came to my area, and then I saw these kids, they were outside. I think they was trying to steal something from a car. So I said, can I speak to you? And I said, what is it you want in that car? What is it you want? What is it you're trying to get? The guy said he wanted to take a sat-nav or something like that. So I said, so you're going to smash somebody's car for a sat-nav, and then what do you want to do with the sat-nav? Keep it? He said, that was to sell it and get money. So I said to the guy, if I give you the money, potentially how much do you think you're going to get for this nav? He said, probably £50. I said, if I give you £50, will that stop you from smashing the car? He said, no. And I said, so, it's not money. Money was not the issue. It's the fact that you had anger inside of you, and that is a way you take out your anger by vandalizing or doing something. I said, do you understand the emotional... You don't understand what the owner is going through. You might smash that person's car, that person can't use their car to go to work tomorrow.
That comes back to your thing about consequences as well.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
exactly. So I said, and then when I explained it to him, I said, so sometimes we have to think about our actions, what our actions can do to other people. I said, you damage that person's car, that person has then got to find money to pay to fix that window. On top of that, still pay money to get the nav.
I think we live in a world as well now that is very much I can have it now.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about social media before
Yeah.
we came on the podcast and how we see everybody's showreel of life and celebrities
Yeah.
and influencers and it looks like, oh, we've just got it. So
Yeah.
a young person who may not be growing up with money and maybe not have a lot of food on the table or whatever it might be, if they're being influenced by all this stuff, all this stimulation all the time, you can have this today, you can have this tomorrow, you can have this. There's no incentive anymore to work for it, to earn it. It's like I can have it today and I can get rid of it tomorrow. Everything is disposable, right?
Yeah.
And I think that also adds to this. If we're not careful, well, if material things are disposable, then am I disposable too? Because I think there's another thing about mental health and what we're talking about communities. Is this deep-seated loneliness that we're not talking about either. Like young people, as much as old people, are experiencing deep, deep loneliness. And we're living in this digital age where we're so much more connected around the world, but we're disconnected in our own communities.
Yeah.
I think that's something that really needs to be. Oh, water. Yeah, thanks. Do you want some
Well,
water?
cheers, man.
Thank you.
Well, that talking into No, it's very true because it's true that
Thank you.
a lot of people
That's
are,
great.
it's true that
Thanks
you
very
said,
much.
a lot of people are lonely. And one thing I notice about a lot of people now is
Thanks.
because people are not communicating with each other, people are tending to find comfort in having pets. Like, people nowadays, I know my friend here.
Sounds like he's not a pet lover.
No,
That's really good for mental health, though.
that's what I'm trying to say.
In fact,
Yeah.
all
I'm not
plants,
saying it in a bad
just
way.
saying can have
Because
farm
me,
pets.
yeah. Do you know why? First of all, yeah, I remember when I had a cat, and I thought, I can't get close to that animal, me
I
having
don't know
a
how
cat.
we got here.
Well, you know what happened? When the cat was there, and I realised it taught me something that I'm going to sleep, the cat is next to me. I'll go downstairs, he follows me.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, in African household, where can you have a pet? You understand? Then I thought I had a cat. And then I was there thinking to myself, this cat is like my family, you know? So when I let it go out, and I don't see him, he don't come back, I'm like, where's the cat? What's going on? I actually get worried. And I thought, no wonder why people like, you know,
Yeah.
I was picturing you as a cat, man.
They
I'm
fill
telling
in
you,
the gap,
like,
yeah.
you wonder why people gravitate to having animals, like
Get
dogs.
used to having them.
Yeah, like having like a dog or something. Or some people don't get along with each other, like people.
Yeah.
You know, some people they can't get along with people.
Yeah.
Or you have females they don't get along with other females.
But I don't necessarily think it's even that. They might think they don't get along with people, but like we've been talking about a lot is communication.
Yeah.
How you
Yeah,
can
it's true.
communicate. Like
Yeah.
if you feel like people that aren't listening to you, then sometimes it can be your approach.
Yeah.
If you feel like people are not listening to you, sometimes it can be the other person. Sometimes the other person hasn't got that skill themselves. Do you have the understanding within yourself that some people aren't also at where you're at?
Yeah.
And a lot of us, we like hold people to like our own level of a higher standard that we're not even meeting.
No, that's
It's
so
not,
true.
we're not even meeting ourselves, you know.
We
It's a
expect them to
higher
do it.
standard, but we definitely have that for others, and I think that's like.
No, that's true. That is true. But then also, like now, you work within a prison or you go outside prisons.
Yeah.
So your experiences, I know you're gonna have a lot of experience going into that prison when you speak to you or whoever you speak to when you're in prison. I want to ask you a question. What tends to be the underlying key factor that leads these people into prison? Like, what decisions have you, when you speak to them, what have been like the decisions that's led them? Has it been like financially they wanted something? Has it been anger towards probably somebody who's done something to them in the past that's made them react a certain way that's led them to go to prison?
I think.
What would you say?
I think there can be lots of different reasons.
Yeah.
And I actually, unless the guy, because I'm working in a male with young offenders,
Yeah.
unless the young person tells me why they're there, I never ask. It's not important to me to know. Because one of the things really important for me is, you know, you are not what you've done. And if we get told you are what you've done, and therefore that's your identity. And I think a massive part of, so obviously there's the giving you reasons of like, I want to help my mum out, I want to help my dad, I want to help my family out, or single parent family, and he, you know, the boy is now looking after his younger brothers and sisters. Some of it can be needing to fit in, but a massive part of it is about identity, about knowing who we are, and we get told by society, by systems, this is who you are. And I say to these guys, particularly with the film that we were doing, I created this space, you know, we met up every day and we just talked about the things that we don't normally talk about. And a massive part of that was actually learning to listen, not to respond, but to understand. And I think we don't do that anymore. I think we're so quick to like, listen to respond, as opposed to listen to what someone said and take it to your heart and resonate with that, and then respond. And I said to them, you know, society will say you're this, the prison system, the justice system will say you're that, family and friends may say you're this now. I said, who are you? Like, I said, do you even know the meaning of your name? And so we went away and I said, look, I'm going to find out the meaning of your names. Because once you know who you are, then you walk in that identity. And I came back the next day, and a lot of them come, not all of them, but a lot of them come from Christian families. They've got, so I looked up the meaning of their names in Hebrew or Aramaic, and some of them had African names. We worked out what they meant in Igbo or Yoruba, and wherever else their names may have come from. And I came back the next day and I said, look, do you know that, you know, your name is this, your name means this. And then, you know, there was a guy who was like, small guy, and I said, you know your name means giant. And he looked at me and went, that's who you are, man. Now, all of these guys that I know, that I was working with in the film, I connected to them through the chaplaincy. So they all had some level of faith. They were at different journeys. And I said, you know what, if we're going to talk about it from that sense, and I don't want to go too far into it, but, you know, that name may have taken you somewhere else because you didn't know who you were. So you're using your giant status in a different way. Actually, let's call it back so that, to align it to where you're meant to be. And, you know, there's a guy whose name meant king, another guy, you know, just incredible names. Lion. And when they knew it, like something in them shifted. And it was so simple. And we don't often look at that side of our lives either. I think, you know, you've been given a name for a reason. And do you know what it means? And do you know? And start from that place. Okay, so what is a king? What is a man of giant status? What does it really mean to be a leader? What does it mean to really be a warrior? In terms of building and constructing and leaving a legacy. Yeah, I'm kind of going off my tangent. I keep going off on tangents,
I fully understand what you're saying.
Yeah, a lot of it is about, when I talk to the guys, it's about breaking down and breaking off the lies that society have told them, that experiences have told them, that people in authority have told them, okay, let's get that one out and let's replace it with the truth. But I think it's really important about, if you're going to take something off, you've got to replace it with the truth. Because otherwise there's just this void there for some other kind of nonsense to go back in. And it's a process, you know, because I might see them and then they go back on the wing and stuff happens, and then that thing that we've talked about may be forgotten. It's about coming back in that place and just rebuilding, and until they take it on for themselves and go, yeah, I am that.
Yeah, because you remember, as we had a conversation earlier, people, when you're in prison, you're stripped of your identity. You're now given a number.
Only known by your last name.
And your last name, So it's like, you're not known to society. You're a product of the prison environment. So, and look at the energy that's around the prison environment. It's very difficult to be positive in a negative environment. So it takes people, you like yourself, you go into the prison, you can speak to people. Because a lot of people, like I said, we all have our own issues. But it takes people to come from an outside point of view, come into the prison, speak to these people, to see the underlying factors, to hear their stories and to relate to them. Like the workshops you're doing is very insightful, because inside that system, the governors, the people who work in there, that's not their job. It's not their job to rehabilitate these people who have been sent to prison. Their job is just to stick with the law, enforce that they're behaving well and things like that. Most of these people is like caged animals. They got a lot of emotion, but it's all pent up, it's all built inside. But they don't know how to express themselves. Like you said, you speak to people and they express themselves, and they tell you with the films, and they tell you the kind of films they want to do with you, like with your workshops. It's very important. It's very important.
I think it's creating. Sorry, I think it's about creating safe spaces
Yeah.
for women and men to speak. And I don't, I can genuinely say that the work that I've done has been really supported by the prison. But I think that's also because I built relationship as a volunteer over the course of a year before I actually ended up doing the project. But they were fully behind what I was doing, which was amazing, because what I was doing was maverick and unorthodox, and no one's gone in and written a film and then filmed that film and within the prison, not with the young men, we weren't able to do that, but filmed their work within the environment in which they've been living and stuff. They're amazing guys. They're just amazing. Anyway,
I just wanted to bring it back to because you brought up several times establishing relationships and building trust, like what you were talking about before. Obviously, I worked in a centre where kids get kicked out of school.
Yeah.
I worked in one of those for about a year, and I found that when I worked within them, number one, they're all amazing. They're all amazing kids. Like, you'll have ones that will have more confidence, that will talk to you straight away, that will conversate with you. They'll have ones that think they're like the dominant and will try and show you they lead in the ship or whatever. And then you'll have ones that, like, I had ones that I felt if I had created a bad relationship with, it would set the tone for others. So when I went in there with a very observant mind. So I was like, just being very analytical of what they were doing. So for like a week, I didn't really talk to anyone. To be honest, they didn't really know why I was there or what's going on. They just see me, a new person in class, and they've got a teacher leading. So at the time, I was just being really observant, seeing like the dynamics, how one person talks to the other, X, Y, Z. And there was this one girl, and they brought me in to deal with one particular girl, but this one wasn't it. She was a different girl, and she had spoke to the head teacher so disrespectfully when I first saw her that I was like, I'm not going to talk to you. And it wasn't out of being mean. Like I say, it was more like I knew if we set this standard, then that's the standard set for everybody. I didn't talk to her. I ended up making best friends with like her best friend, and like I was there for maybe 2.5 months, and we had never spoke. Like, she'd be in and out. Like she was almost like a mini big woman, if I'm being honest. Like the way she carried herself was like that. Like she was grown, naked. She's talking X, Y, Z out of her mouth, like proper grown attitude about her. And then one day I was working alongside a Mal, and she's come to him because she obviously had already established a relationship with him. She was like, "Who is she?" And I said I was there, by the way, with her friend. She was like, "Who is she?" And then he was like, "Oh, well, this is Vanessa. She's a wellbeing officer, whatever." And then it took her maybe 1 or 2 days after that to like approach me, and then she just started asking me questions. I started asking her questions. We had a very normal conversation, and we established like a level of respect that I had never experienced disrespect from her. The reason I didn't talk to her was because I felt that she was that disrespectful that there couldn't be a line. By the end, because I didn't like come and force a relationship with her. A lot of people that work with young people, they try to force a relationship. But a lot of what we've said today is about understanding and coming from a place where, you can relate. Like, how was you in school? I found that when I worked in a centre, there was a lot of people that worked in Tesco's there. You've got people that work in Tesco's working with vulnerable young people, and then expect them to, I don't know, somehow turn around and come out the best. It's impossible. You've got unqualified, inexperienced people working with them, and I think a lot of the things and structures that are put in place for them, like you say, is like a setup to fail. Whether it be CAMS, whether it be the best people I've personally had experience with is yacht, because the yacht system seemed like the people that my brother had experienced. They they were able to bring it straight to a level that was like so down here that anyone can get. A lot of us have these expectations and things in our heads that are up here, like I say, that are even higher than ourselves, and we're looking from that from young people, and that's not how. So I don't know. I think establishing trust so that they can be vulnerable and usually leading with your own example. So like disclosing some kind of situation that you had. So I found that I remember having like a year 8 class, and I wrote a poem when I was about 14 or something, and it was largely based on like domestic abuse and like the fact that I had a youth mentor, because I had one in school, and he like really changed like the way I thought about the world pretty much. I wrote a poem and I shared it with the year 8s because they were younger as well. I didn't really feel too judged, so I shared it with them. And this little boy who had been so annoying, if I'm being completely honest, in my class, turned around and because I said like, take some time, write down the paper if you feel like it, blah 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 blah. And he wrote a poem, and it was like really explaining in depth some of his home situation, and you would, as much as he was annoying, it was like all of a sudden everything shifted in me, because it was like I had a completely new perspective on the child. So for me, showing him mine, he could show me his. And I think that's largely what it is to do with young people. You have to show them yours so that they can trust and believe in you to show and tell you about theirs.
That relates to something that you said as well. You were talking about, we don't as men generally speak about what's really going on.
Yeah.
And I think what you did, by breaking down, by making yourself vulnerable or showing something of your experience, you don't know how you might be inviting somebody else to do the same. But if you never do that, then we're never inviting someone else to be, oh, actually, wow, you shared that. Thank you. Now I'm going to share a bit of. Now I know that I can share that with you, And it might not be that you can do it with all the mandem. It's got to be, in a massive group. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. It depends on, what that friendship circle's like. But if there's just two of you, if it can just be with one person, you invite that person, by you sharing, you invite somebody else to share too. Whereas if we're constantly keeping up these masks of perfection, then nobody can ever live up to that.
Yeah, it's true. And that's why it's important you need to have trust in the person who you're going to share. Because that's the main thing, because you can tell someone something that's very deep to you. And then that news can be spread out there. Something that was personal, you share it with someone. And then you know how things happen, and then the news gets out there. And that was something deep. You trusted that person. You told them these kind of things. And this is why a lot of people as well, that's why a lot of people, they keep quiet, they keep everything in, because they don't want repercussions of whatever they tell you to get out there. Because it happens a lot. If I tell someone something that's important to me or that's close to my heart, and then they go tell somebody else, then
that's going to stop you from ever sharing that.
So then in the future, I've got a barrier to defend myself. And one thing I noticed as well, when I was going through certain issues, what I used to do in order to help boost myself, I want to ask you what you do to boost your morale when you're feeling low. But what I used to do some days, I know people say this is weird, but I used to write down how I'm feeling.
That's important, man.
I write it down. The negative things, I write them down, and then I'll have the positive things, this is how I'm feeling now, this is where I want to be. And for the negative things, I'll write them down, how I'm feeling this day, this is how I felt. Then I just burn it. I'll burn the negative things. And then I'll keep the positive things. And I felt like just that little action, it helped me. And then I thought, it's like getting rid of the bad, writing down things that, I feel low today. I don't have motivation. I was writing those things down, and I'll burn them, and I look at the positive. And that's why I always, it's very important to try to be your own, find strength in yourself. We all have strength. We all have our own individual strength. Like we said before, some people may be good at speaking, some people are good at listening. So it's for you to know who you can interact with and share certain things with to gain experiences from each other. Like, we all come from different walks of life. I'm hearing stories about you with your brother. You've been in the prison. These are information that we're sharing with each other. But there's a certain element of trust where you can share certain things. I said a few certain things that I've went through that I would never tell. That some people, something you lot won't even know. I've never heard some stories I've said, but I feel like I'm comfortable on this platform to speak my mind, because if you're dealing with mental health, there's a lot of issues where, like, what did they say? A problem, what's the thing? Problem,
Shared is
shit,
problem halved.
a problem halved, yeah. That's that saying, yeah. Because when you share information with people, you feel it takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. You feel lighter, you feel good. So that's why I feel like nowadays it's very important in general for people to try to speak their mind, but also you have to be aware of who you're speaking to. You have to be aware of who you're speaking to and where you're speaking about your issues. Because a lot of the fundamental things that people are struggling with now is always financial problems people are going through. When you speak to people in general, it's either they're in debt or they're trying to live a lifestyle to impress others, where they're putting themselves in financial problems, like taking out payday loans to go to party with their friends and things like that. People are doing these kind of things. Social media is the new platform. People they don't want to hear anymore, they want to see. That's why social media is, I feel like social media is causing a lot of problems because people are using it in the wrong way. It's causing a lot of problems, especially with the youth now. Like, there's some certain people who, if they don't have a certain amount of followers, they feel like they're not wanted, they're not accepted. And I believe that that's all fake, because I know people that will have thousands of followers but not one friend. So you got thousands of people who will follow you, but not one person to actually follow you, to go somewhere positive, to follow you, to do something positive. But yeah, you got all these followers. So people have a lifestyle that they show you, is that, I say it's like match of the day. People only want to show you the highlights. They don't show you the actual, you don't see what happens in the actual game. They show you the best parts of their life. They show you when they're partying. They show you when they're out with their friends, enjoying, having a good time. But they don't show you when they're at home crying, when there's no one there to speak to. And that's what I went through sometimes. I had a lot of friends that used to go party together, but then when I'm going through the emotion and I ring them, I'm hearing your phone's forwarded to T-Mobile voicemail. I'm hearing all kind of voicemail messages. I'm thinking, but when was time to party, you was there, your phone was available. When it was time for you to borrow money or something like that,
Their phone was available.
they were ringing me. Yeah, wait, shall we go out? Can you borrow me some money? I borrowed you money. And when it's time for me to ring you, like I'm going through something, everyone disappeared, and I realized, you know what? In this walk of life, you're on your own. You just got to know the path where you want to go. So I stick to myself. I got my friends who are close to me. And we share, we motivate each other, we speak to each other. Whether it's not daily, if I just speak to my friends in probably like a week or so, I know that when I speak to them, it's not really like we're having a catch up. We're just picking up where, because that's the kind of relationships we have. We've built that trust. We know if you're in any problem, you can ring me. Like my friends, they know. In my house, remember, in my house in London, that was like a safe haven.
People just used to chill there, man.
Everyone used to come to my house and chill. Any problems you had at your house, come to my house.
My house is the same.
Yeah, everybody's got that house. Because you come there, you can clear your head. Sometimes then before you go back to where you got your little dramas or your issues, but my house was always a safe haven. And I credit that to my parents. But my parents, when I was raised around love, they showed us love. My sisters, it was always a family unit. I remember people used to be envious. Because to see a family unit nowadays, it's not, you don't see it often. Brothers, sisters, mum and dad together, all in unison, sharing, like eating together, cracking jokes together. You don't really see that now. It's either dad could be with a child or the mum's with a child. You don't really see the family together. But one thing I do know, you don't always have to be a family unit to be happy. You could just find comfort in, it could just be like a mother and a child, a father and a child, or just, you know what I mean? You don't have to be a big family, or you can have extended family with friends, but as long as they're positive people in your life. Positive people in your life.
That's what I was saying to you about community. You have to pick. You have to pick wisely.
You got to pick wisely.
Those people that you do keep as friends, they are the people that will also influence your children. So
exactly.
It's a lot larger than like yourself at that point. You have to think larger.
And another thing I wanted to touch upon, you know, like, some days, you know, when you go out and you see, I tend to have a soft spot for like elderly people, because I know like in these day and age that it's a very lonely place for them. You know, sometimes they've probably been through, they've seen a lot. So it's very good to speak to elderly people because you learn a lot from them. Like one day I was talking to, you know, you got these people that when they're waiting outside shops for donations and things like that. I spoke to a man. He was in a war. I spoke to him. I said to him, now you've been in a war. You've been in the war, right? I said, what do you have like any issues that you're dealing with now, like PTSD? I said every day. He said he witnessed his friends being killed on the battlefield. He's witnessed going into like trenches where he's seen dead bodies of children. And I said to him, and this was how many years ago? And I said, how have you managed that to live through all of that now? And I feel like the elderly people, we don't really look at them in that regard now. We just look at them like anyway, their time's finished. They're on the way out. They don't get no support whatsoever. So it's like people have been through so much things, but in a way it's very good to interact with people. It doesn't matter about the age gap, because you can learn. You always learn from the older people. And now it's very sad, but people are now living in their households, elderly people, whereas that they may have lost their partner, so they're on their own. They worked hard for so many years. It's like coming down to pension, things like that. The guy said there's no pension. All the years he was working, when he came down to getting a pension, it's nothing. So people are genuinely that they're lonely. There's a lot of people that are lonely. So I always say, what kind of support should there be for like the elderly people? Because I believe that people just look at them like, their time's finished. Nobody pays attention to them. It's not like how it used to be back in the day when you see an elderly person on the road walking, struggling, and someone will come and help them. I've seen people literally.
When it comes to that, I think it's just like the family dynamic changed, like largely in that generation that are elderly now. The family dynamics changed 100% from like that normal mum, dad, etc., etc. The same with the fact that we live in the 21st century. They lived through like the Industrial Revolution, where things went from farming to now businesses and corporate world, and in that's where the family kind of lost its like place in. I feel like I said earlier, like I feel like we're getting to a point where we've seen that we've made some mistakes and we didn't understand. And I feel like even us discussing that is because we know that there's a gap that we've somewhat missed. Before it'd be, the grandparents would be in the house with the mum and dad, with the kids. It was all a unit, like you're talking of. It was a big operation. You have the grandparents to look after the kids after school and make the dinner whilst you went to work, and so you wasn't paying for childcare, and childcare wasn't like your fundamental struggle, etc., etc. Everyone pulled in. Or when it was farming, it was like, people they're teaching their grandkids how to farm and how to do this and how to that. So they had a place. Like even when they was losing their mobility or whatever it might be as an old person that you start to deteriorate with, when they still had something. Nowadays, like I said, they kind of, because we didn't know when all of these changes were happening, no one really knew what was going to happen with them. And we're learning that like people are dying, cold and without food because, universal credit takes 8 weeks to get through. Because I was listening to the news, sorry, that's why I said that. I listened to the news the other day, and it was literally saying that this old man had died because his universal credit got cut off. No one had checked on him in like 2 or 3 weeks. And when his universal credit got cut off, he had no gas and he had no food. So he died of starvation in the freezing cold. And this is in our day and age, that somebody can somehow have government assistance, but not be government assisted, clearly, because your gas is off and you have no dinner. And obviously, like, it's great to have things like food banks, but food banks can't supply because they have to go to a food bank. So a food bank is out of reach. Technology to them is also out of reach. Like, there's lots of things for that age group that they're not in touch with because it wasn't their world growing up. And I'm not going to say I have the answers, but I think a lot of it, like you were saying, is there's a lot to learn from them. And I think sometimes if we give them more time and have more patience with them, like how we would like people to have patience with us, then there's something to learn from them. Like I saw on Channel 4 once that they did like, it's like the adults and the grandparents and the kids, and it was like, them spending the day in the old people's home, pretty sure, or something like that. And the stuff that the kids were teaching the old people and the stuff that the old people were teaching the kids, that almost comes back to the old family dynamic within the house, where they had a place and where the child was loved and nurtured through by the whole family, not just mum and dad, and having that pressure like, oh, mum's at work, so no one's paying me attention. Well, you have a grandparent that played games with you. Do you get what I mean? So I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I definitely see that we at least we're having conversations and making like the steps towards finding out that for the next generation that this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I think the massive problem is that we're so connected now, through internet, through social media, that we've become disconnected. We've become so disconnected from the community that lives right next door to us. We don't know our neighbours. We don't know the old person down the street. And I think that actually it is about turning off your mobile phone. Like when you're walking down the street, you don't need it in your hand, you know? Put it in your pocket, say hello, like you were saying, give eye contact. Say ask the guy who works in the corner store, hey, how's your day been? If he looks a bit miserable, you know, looks like your day's been really hard. Disarm that person and be like, oh my gosh, you're engaging. And I think ask the person, you know, the older guy, look, is there anything I can get? I'm just going down the shops, can I get something for you? There's such easy, simple things, and it doesn't cost, like, what does it cost to buy a loaf of bread and a pint of milk for, you know, an older person in the street or whatever? And I think that if we could, we're so good at connecting via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but we're rubbish at connecting like this, you know? And actually just having a conversation with that person down the road or next door, or in the apartment downstairs. And it's simple, and I think if we could do that, if we could take what has worked with social media and take it into our communities, it would shift. And maybe we wouldn't have, mental illness, because we're talking about mental illness, would be there, but we'd be talking more because we'd be communicating. Sharing bread with, you know, breaking bread with one another. Hey, why don't you come in for a cup of tea? Tell me about your day. And asking that deeper question instead of like, hey, how are you? But also, you know, what's the highlight of your day today? Or what was the thing that was difficult today? Or what's worrying you? You know, the things that are worrying you. We don't ever ask the deeper question. Hey, how are you? I'm fine. Okay, we trot along with our day. You know, and I think it is just about, you know, what you're saying, getting connected, staying connected.
Very good information. Like, I hope that we're all learning from each other. It's a good thing to hear different people's experiences and taking on board what we've said. Like, so to kind of like round it up, so to kind of end it on this kind of note, that for those people who are suffering any kind of mental problem, whether you have whether you're depressed, PTSD, anything to do with eating, try to seek help from either professionals or speak to people who are positive influences. It's difficult to identify people who are positive, that if you don't really know somebody, because first of all, you need to engage with somebody. You need to have that one-to-one conversation before you can see if you can truly grasp, if you can open up to that person. But there's a lot of different professional people out there who are ready to help. It's very important to communicate with people as well, like you said. Even just to say hello to someone, that can change somebody's day, their state of mind, because it shows that you acknowledge that person. Because a lot of people, we're walking down the street, everybody's head is clouded with different problems. But in order to communicate with each other, just to say hi, how's your day, it helps a lot of people release some of the emotion that they've got inside of them. And like I said before, it's a bit difficult as well, the system, because we're in a system. It's like a matrix. It's difficult to be positive in a negative environment. But try to look for the things in yourself, things that you may enjoy doing. You may enjoy writing. It might be a way you may enjoy doing pictures, like paintings and things like that. Like Penificent, they're doing well with comics, engaging with you through comics. That's a very unique thing that they're doing. So salute to Penificent for what they're doing as well. So all find your niche, find what makes you happy. Whether it's going to the gym to train, whether it's going to like a park to go for a walk. Find something that you enjoy doing. Nothing is too weird. Don't allow people to say, oh, that's weird. You might enjoy doing yoga, or you want to try something different to help ease up your mind. Always feel free to do what's going to make you happy, because at the end of the day, your happiness is the most important thing over everything. So don't feel like you're odd because you're doing something different to others. Find what's good for you and focus on what's going to make you happy. And to do that, you'll be able to share amongst other people. You'll be able to communicate with other people. People can gain from you as well. So that's the main thing. That's how I want to end it. But guys, I'd like to thank you for coming on this
Well, it's a pleasure to
podcast.
be here, man.
It's a good thing to talk about. It's a subject that people talk about, but not in detail. People tend to take a back seat. They don't really go into talk about different things that affect them on a day-to-day. So, guys, I'd like to thank you all for your input. Guys,
Pick up the socials.
yeah, big up the social. We've got at Penificent. Shout out to Southern Council as well.
Pick up your socials as well.
Big up the Let's Hustle podcast. Guys, is there anything, any
Well,
social
I've
that you
taken
want?
myself off social media, but I do have a website, so people can find out about the film if they go to my website, which is Natalie with an H, NATHALIE, and then my last name, POWNALL.com, and you can find out about the film and come and support it.
Yeah. Any socials, bro?
Not even, man.
Not even.
You know, I've got some stuff I'm planning for next year, but you'll see it on the Penificent.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm putting pressure on them now to plug me. Steve is looking at it.
Yeah, my Instagram's VXLocks. Check me out.
Nice. So just if you want to get in contact with any of them, feel free to shout them. We're going to keep all the information in the video at the bottom as well, so you'll be able to follow everyone. Shout out to Let's Hustle Podcast. Back again. Take care, everyone. Peace.
That was good, man.